you. Give the people something of your new vision. Your enthusiasm for a strong light. Courage. Let it shine. Use it in order to bring. A reading by Angela Herrera. We gather in reverence for what is holy this day, bringing many names for the sacred. From our common journey, we join in one community, one body of people, standing on the side of love. Among us, the weary, the sick, the heartbroken, the joyful, the light of heart, the brave. In covenant together, we answer the call for justice, speaking out against oppression, reaching out into a wider world that teaches us, humbles us, and heals us as we work to heal it. We give thanks for this call, O love, our source, though it is not always easy. We arrive through these doors with many private burdens, with secrets and regrets. We are in need of healing and forgiveness, and often in danger of despair. But a greater spirit, a greater mystery moves in this place, one in which our world may be reborn again and again, because the sacred dwells among us. The sacred blesses our yearning for wholeness. Let us have the courage to go out into the world and heal it. Let us have the courage to go out into the world and change it, to bring the world into ourselves and to be changed. Let us speak out with courage, but act with compassion. A reading by Angela Herrera. Good morning, again. It's an honor and joy to be here. I actually have been to media many, many times and never been to this congregation. Not sure how that happened. I'm usually here visiting my grandmother, who many of you know. She's at Lima Estates, and she'll be coming to the 11:15 service. And that's how I ended up here. So it's my honor and joy to join you this morning. First, a poem by Emily Dickinson. Love, love, thou art high. I cannot climb thee, but were it two, who knows but we, taking turns at the Chimborazo, do call at last, stand up by thee. Love, love, thou art deep. I cannot cross thee, but were there two instead of one, rower and yacht, some sovereign summer, who knows but we'd reach the sun. Love, love, thou art veiled. A few, behold thee, smile and alter and prattle and die. Bliss were an oddity, without thee nicknamed by God, eternity. A poem by Emily Dickinson. So you may know that most chaplains or ministers, we have a very similar library, and I was sort of smirking to myself as I was looking at the library here. My library looks almost exactly the same. We have all the same books: liberation theology, we have books on atonement, forgiveness, love, passion, wedding, services of union, funerals, everything you can imagine, but it's kind of the same titles. We go to like one of 4 seminaries, that's partially why we're trained by the same people. But I wanted to write about love from a poetry standpoint. I wanted to find a different way to discuss it. And I chose that because we do often use the same readings over and over again. My friend, Reverend John Cresswell, who's out of UU Annapolis, he says that I shouldn't use NPR anymore. I use NPR every single sermon I have, because UUs are so familiar with hearing stories from NPR. He says it's so trite that I shouldn't anymore. So I chose poetry to be a little different. So love, agape, eros, devotion, yearning, longing, love, beloved, worship, relinquish, surrender, amour, love of self, love of other, love of country, love of family, love of God, love of nature, as we see here. We walk through these valleys of love and devotion each and every day in the relationships that we cherish. We see love blossom and flower in every corner of the world. Mother Teresa, she wrote, "Love is a fruit in season at all times and within reach of every hand." In poetry, that deep well of need, of human need to love and be loved in a bruised and hurting world, it emerges. And Emily Dickinson's poem captures this perfectly. Love, thou art high. Love, thou art deep. Love, thou art veiled. So to begin, love, thou art high. Emily Dickinson references the great peak at Chimborazo. Has anyone ever been there? There's usually at least one person who at least knows where it is, perhaps. South America. It's the highest peak in Ecuador. I actually had to look it up. I had no idea. So walking hand in hand, Emily writes, we stand together. We stand together often as UUs, do we not? It is called the campaign of standing on the side of love. We stand by those who struggle for justice. We stand by those who have no voice, no representation. We stand by those who are overlooked, oppressed, disadvantaged, and not given the full dignity of personhood in our societies. We stand on the side of love. And this, our UU campaign, it's actually an interfaith public advocacy campaign that seeks to harness love's power to stop oppression through community outreach and activism, social networking, and media outreach. People across the nation are bound together by Facebook, as we know, and you can even friend Standing on the Side of Love campaign and get updates every day. As the politician Norman Rice challenged the citizens of Seattle as their first and only African-American mayor, he wrote, "Dare to reach out your hand into the darkness and pull another hand into the light." In this spirit, as UUs, we call for respect. We call for inclusion and compassion in the face of violence, hatred, fear, and discrimination. In our great UU tradition, of course, in 2010, Standing on the Side of Love reimagined Valentine's Day as a social justice holiday. Now it's evolved into 30 days of love. Perhaps your congregation did something around 30 days of love on Valentine's Day. And it's described as a month-long spiritual journey and commitment to sustained action and service. So Emily's line, love, love, thou art high. Through love we are strengthened. Through love we are encouraged. We can accomplish more side by side than we can alone. Infants, if not coddled, caressed, nurtured, and loved, they fail to thrive and their small, tender bodies begin to dwindle, and their spirits leave their bodies. Through love, our very cells are refreshed. Through love, our very cells are refreshed and strengthened and buoyed for the great journey. So I grew up at River Road Unitarian Universalist congregation in Bethesda, Maryland, which is one of the congregations I'm an affiliate. So every time I go to preach there, I get the ladies who remind me that they knew me, I was this big. So one of the things that I loved doing at River Road as a small child was Stone Soup Sunday. And I imagine that may be a tradition you have here as well. If you're not familiar with the Stone Soup story, everyone brings, well, at church, everyone brings one thing to share in a big pot, and it's basically a glorified stew. And as the kid in me, it brings together the two things that I loved, food and community. But together, the Stone Soup story sort of honors how we are greater together in community, and we can support each other, even though alone we don't have enough to support ourselves. But years after talking with other colleagues about what the beloved community is about, there's another allegory I actually relate to just a bit more talking about community. And it's the allegory of the long spoons. Has anyone ever heard this or seen the picture? It's also a picture. So if you can imagine, there's two gatherings of people sitting in front of a great pot of soup. It's a sumptuous feast. There's lots of food everywhere. The first group, they're emaciated, they're miserable, they're angry. They're sitting in darkness, they're struggling. They have these massive long spoons and they're trying to get into the bowl and trying to get to the food and they're trying to feed themselves, but every time they bring it to their mouths, it drops. The food drops from their spoons. And they're unhappy and they're hungry and they're struggling. They try over and over again and can't see what's sitting right in front of them because in the second room, the same group, the same feast, the same long spoons, but instead of feeding themselves, they are feeding each other. They're happy. They're fed. They're content. They're enjoying each other. This is one version of hell. Hell on earth is the first one. The vision of heaven on earth is the second. Same food, same gatherings, different understanding of how we are in community, in covenant with each other. This first spiritual principle from Emily Dickinson's poem, love, love thou art high, we lift as we climb, we stand together, we feed each other, we sustain each other's passions, we sustain each other's pains, and we build the beloved community together. Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, "Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love." Our second spiritual principle is love. Love, thou art deep. Like the roots of a great ancient tree, the depths of love are largely unseen, but they hold together a mighty fortress of deeply held feelings, deeply held emotions. In this depth of love, the greatest of our nature as spiritual beings is put forth. We have the opportunity to look within and reflect on how we love, how we exist with others in this love. And in that spirit, many of our world's traditions value and recognize the need for atonement, the need for asking for forgiveness regularly, as a way to right our relationships between me and God, me and the sacred, me and you, between me and my community. In our faith, one religious concept of forgiveness is couched in a language of relationships, rebuilding trust, rebuilding fidelity and the ties that bind us to each other, each to each. Forgiveness is sought from our brothers and sisters, that universal energy towards the will of good in each other and humanity. Forever, the colorful wordsmith, writer Mark Twain wisely penned, "Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it." In forgiveness, there is pain. In forgiveness, there is redemption, or at least the hope of redemption and reconciliation. As you heard, I'm a military chaplain. I've been in the Army for 11 years now. As a reservist, mostly on active duty for close to 9 of those 11 years. I came into the ministry not quite knowing what I was going to do, but end up joining the Army as a lifelong UU. Who knew? So military chaplains, we often sit with soldiers, service members, their families, and we feel and carry with them their burdens from choices they've made from a distant or recent past. This is the stole I was ordained with, and on one side it says, keeping one hand on the fire. And that's always been my vision of what being a military chaplain is like. My hand is kept on the pulse of those who are suffering, in the midst of suffering, and carrying a heavy burden for society as we fight our nation's wars. So one organization that I've become familiar with that has inspired me is called A Soldier's Heart. And one of our other UU military chaplains actually works with Dr. Ed Tick, who started Soldier's Heart. Dr. Tick conducts healing and forgiveness ceremonies for veterans. And these veterans, in my words, are rotting from the inside from the guilt and shame of their past action and service. At a military chaplain training retreat that I went to a couple years ago, Dr. Tick presented to us just one story from the healing journeys that he leads for Vietnam vets in Vietnam, as they return to that country to seek peace, to seek forgiveness, and to seek transformation. As Dr. Tick writes, veterans are provided an opportunity to meet former Viet Cong and NVA soldiers and respectfully and personally share their common history of military service. The veterans are supported in returning to those places also that are important to them: a hillside, a rice paddy, a particular village, an old tunnel. Together, Dr. Tick and those returning veterans on the healing journey create rituals that enable healing and closure. And through love, they honor each other and the ones who have died. They open their hearts up to forgiveness and reconciliation, peace, and love. In these healing journeys, we see that love, thou art deep. Only in love can we delve deep inside of ourselves, facing our darkness, facing our loneliness, our sadness, and our pains. But also our deepest joys and strivings for hope. Our third spiritual principle, love out veiled. The greatest part of our faith walk is wrestling with the mystery of the great unknown. However you may frame that great unknown, be it God, be it universe, be it heaven, be it hell, be it Buddha, be it rebirth. Even the very ways we relate to the divine and sacred in our lives, through prayer, through meditation, through yoga, through dance. A friend of mine just returned from Israel, where he went to go see the whirling dervishes that celebrate the divine in the dance. In this principle of love, thou art veiled, we see that love is ultimately a tapping into that river of the sacred unfolding in our lives. We are called to be in relationship with others. And when Unitarian Francis David, he wrote, "You need not think alike to love alike," centuries ago, when it was heretical to even utter such words. We offer that radical love in our day and age. We do not choose who we love, but we can choose to open our hearts, our doors, our homes to the beloved community, and to bring light and comfort to that place within us that craves connection and wholeness. It was a perfect setup when Chrissy this morning shared in her personal reflection. There is a big difference between saying, good luck on your move, and showing up to do the hard work. We show up to do the hard work. But in my world, my hard work is not with people who are UUs. My hard work is not with people who are even from a liberal or progressive tradition, as you may understand. I work with a lot of traditional and perhaps evangelical chaplains, soldiers, family members. And from them, as a lifelong UU, I've had to do like an internal translation. And one of the things that I actually found a lot of meaning with was a book called Purpose-Driven Life, who you may have heard of, by Pastor Rick Warren. One of the most fabulously popular books in the whole wide world. He's done so well with that book. He's paid back the church 7 years of his salary, and he takes no salary at all from here on out. Pastor Rick Warren was actually one of the first who brought an AIDS ministry into Africa in the 80s, before other churches even thought to do so. And they are still there, bringing hope and medicine and ministry and schools to hard-hit areas. Purpose-Driven Life, they've actually made a military edition, put camouflage on it. It fits in our little combat pouch right here. And all over Afghanistan, all over camps or forward operating base I saw a lot of these books dog-eared that people have written on, taken notes with, reflected on. Now, while many of us would not perhaps agree with a lot of Pastor Rick Warren's theology, he's been very anti-marriage equality, which hurts my heart deeply, affects me personally and as a community. His good works and approach of service are remarkable and expansive. Pastor Rick Warren will do work with any group, any church, regardless of their theology or tradition. He talks about social justice, doing the good work in an interfaith context. First, we connect hand to hand. We do the work together. We serve those populations hardest hit by AIDS in Africa. We serve the soup kitchens. We rebuild communities after Katrina. We fight against oppression in this day and age. We work together, hand to hand. And through the work, we connect heart to heart. I know you, you know me, you know my children, I know you, your family, I've been in your home. It's only when we work hand to hand, heart to heart, can we even begin to discuss head to head what we may think. I met someone who works for Pastor Rick Warren a couple weeks ago at a military training retreat, and she told me one of the things that she says often is, I don't care what you think until I think that you care. And that is our first step with building relationships with those who might be different from us. So part of that love thou art veiled, is doing that holy, sacred work of serving others regardless of race, gender, age, sexual orientation, income level, philosophy, political affiliation, or any other delineation that tears apart our society. Through love, in this day, we ask ourselves, how are we standing on the side of love? How are we bowing down to the great mystery of the veiled sacred in our lives? How are we bringing more love into the world? It's a Buddhist saying that if you light a lamp for one other, that light will also burn bright and illuminate your own path. If we submit to that understanding that the entire universe, all that is sacred, God, or however you understand that which is larger than yourself, that pulses around us, the will towards the good, the never-ending blossom of our souls with love, then as spiritual seekers, we are called to be stewards of each other's gentle keeping. We are called to confront the darkness within us and to know that we are loved, to know that we are lovable, and we are able to love mightily, and we stand on the side of love. If you get a chance to go on the Standing on the Side of Love webpage, they actually have suggestions of how you can bring more love into your life daily. Some of those I love, like sending a love brigade to a school that may have had an incident of hazing or bullying, writing love notes to your local mosque or religious community that might be a minority in your area, building bridges in places that are difficult and tough, but build love ultimately. One of the best examples that I sort of consider a standing on the side of love example is the church, the Westboro Baptist Church, which is a rabidly and very homophobic, rabidly horrible, organization. Shouldn't have said that. Strike that. So there's a house that was across the street from the Westboro Baptist Church, and you may have seen this story on the news. Well, a gentleman bought it and painted the entire house a rainbow flag. Now, not a flag on the side of the house. The entire house is a rainbow flag. In my opinion, that is a very peaceful, loving, respectful, but public advocacy statement of standing on the side of love. And furthermore, when Fred Phelps, I don't even know his name, it won't even stay in my brain, it hurts me that much. But the leader of the Westboro Baptist Church, when he recently died, it was Standing on the Side of Love campaigners that went to the next protest. They knew that those Westboro Baptist people would be at, and they held signs saying, "We are sorry for your loss." If that does not say more about who and what we are and what we're about, I don't know. I invite you to go over and find maybe smaller ways to bring Standing on the Side of Love into your lives and your faith walk. I leave you with the words of Reverend Howard Thurman, who is one of the most greatest African American theologians and writers, who talked about Jesus and the disinherited in 1948, and he deeply influenced the civil rights movement in this country. And he wrote, "Keep open the door of thy heart." There's a profound ground of unity that is more pertinent and authentic than all the unilateral dimensions of our lives. This a man discovers when he is able to keep open the door of his heart. This is one's ultimate responsibility. It is not dependent on whether the heart of another is kept open for him. Here is the mystery. If sweeping through the door of my heart, there continually moves a genuine love for you, it bypasses all your hate, all your indifference, and gets through to you at your center. You are powerless to do anything about it. It is utterly impossible to keep another from loving you. The word that love is stronger than hate and goes beyond death is the great disclosure to one who has found how to keep open the door to his heart. It matters not how many doors are closed against him. Amen, and blessed be. Our closing words this morning come from Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are never alone.